Previously on.
Previously.
Previously on.
Previously on.
Previously on.
Previously on.
Previously on.
Previously on.
Previously on the recap sequence.
Hey folks, welcome to the recap sequence. We are back and we have a great guest, and be prepared for some nostalgia because we are going to deep dive into all of your lives here. Scott Baltjes is joining us from Halifax. Great to see you, Scott. Welcome to the show.
Oh, glad to be here.
I believe, Scott, your tagline, I love it. It says animator, photographer, artist, and nefarious mastermind.
Yep. Well, I prefer playing evil characters. They're much more fun.
Well, look, we one of the biggest credits that I want to jump into that just sang to me when you were at ECCE, and this is part of why I was so disappointed we didn't get a chance to bump into you.
Yeah, it was eye-catching because it was his banner, wasn't it?
Yeah, is a Reboot, which I mean anybody of our ilk and age could not have avoided if especially if you lived in Canada. Was a show that not only did I watch on YTV in the evenings in the 90s as I was a budding young adult and religiously watched it. It was like on my list of like we've got to watch this. It sort of came back around in syndication on in the early mornings when I became a dad, and so I had the joy and pleasure of rewatching it, whether my infants and toddlers were really catching on to what it was. It's one of those shows that has stayed very enjoyable to watch. It's not. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in it, and what kind of work you did on it.
Well, to begin with, I graduated from Sheridan College in Oakville, Ontario. And I was actually the last person to ever get a job of my class, although I was expected to be like the first. I was the second choice for Pacific Data Images and Rhythm and Hues. And though I was the first choice for ILM, they looked at my student reel of this little girl battling this giant mechanical monster made from a Mack truck head, a train locomotive body, and construction equipment limbs, which I intend to post on YouTube soon. It's on Vimeo. It's called Post Historic. Anyway, ILM had orders to get a female animator, which were very rare at the time. Back in 1994, the studios were going for one female for every 10 males.
Wow.
Which was actually very hard to do back then. And even when later on, when I got hired by Mainframe, we only had one female animator. And out of 25 animators, there were only like 30 people in the entire studio. That's how small it was.
And so, by today's standards, I guess, what's how does that differ? I guess, like, is I assume like with CG, they're much larger units, I suppose that work on different things. So 30 would be comparatively quite small.
Yes, 30 is actually very small. Two of the work crew were the modelers. Everyone else was either an animator, and then there were a couple editors. The bosses, Ian Pearson and Phil Mitchell, would be in the Avid suite with James Bosher, who was our editor. And they would be smoking away, and I would walk in there and I would say, God, you could smoke a ham in here.
Different times,
So
eh?
dense. All you could see would be the computer screens. Smoke-filled dark room.
When you did the classwork, Scott, going through school, how big was your class size? How many people? Like, was this something that people were getting into? I used to work for a private college where animation was a program offered, and usually it was about 20 students. And by the time the 2-year program ended, they had whittled it down to about 12 students at that point who were graduating.
Well, Sheridan College, I'd done the art fundamentals 1 year and 3 years of classical animation. And because my mechanical monsters were hand drawn, teacher Mark Simon suggested I take the computer animation course. He said that there was starting to be a demand for computer animators. The 2D animation was starting to die off. There was the industry had kind of flatlined, not much work out there. I thought, oh, well, I'll do that. And I recreated my mechanical monsters in software called Softimage 3D, which was kind of the beginning of the industry standard at the time. And it got me a lot of interest. I had Bill Croyer of Fern Gully fame phoned me up and offered me a job, but he hasn't done anything since Fern Gully.
Oh, really? I remember Fern Gully too. I was Christian Slater, I think, was one of the voices in that one.
Yes, I thought he would be the next Don Bluth against Disney.
Really?
But I guess things didn't turn out. He was going to be doing a feature film for Universal, and he personally wanted me on his team. And then later on, Tom Stanton, the world's tallest animator, offered me a job on Toy Story.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And he told me I was hired. I would get a package in the mail in a couple weeks. After 3 weeks, I started calling him twice a week.
Where's my package?
Getting his answering machine, which was Tom Stanton, the world's tallest animator, with this echoed voice and playing. Finally, after about 2 months of calling, I got his secretary. And she said, Mr. Stanton's on a 6-month motorcycle trip in Southeast Asia.
Oh.
So
that's nice.
I'd gone back through. I was really disappointed. I should have asked about where my status was.
Sure, yeah.
Anyway, I just hung up the phone, went through my list of studios that I had sent demo reels to. For some strange reason, Reboot Inc. hadn't been checked off, so I immediately sent one to them. And a week later, Spanky Grant was on the phone offering me a job.
Wow.
Amazing. And so your Reboot was really, and I remember it as kind of like, because I played video games, so I was, right into the PlayStation at that point. And then it was sort of, for me, I guess, the first television series that was animated in fully 3D. And I guess at the time, that was quite groundbreaking. So how was it to get involved in something like that? Something that's like really kind of completely brand new for television consumption?
Well, it was quite demanding. When I first got hired, the interview was in a strip bar called Cecil's.
Oh, nice.
After
Okay.
which the character Cecil is named.
Really? Okay.
Cecil's was kind of the place where a lot of wheeling and dealing in the film industry, which was still kind of in its infancy back in Vancouver at the time, was done. The Reboot studio actually had their own private table there, which was a piano.
This is great.
And it had a sign, Reboot members only. The in thing was to be invited to it.
Wow.
So the bosses had over at the table a lot of who's who of Vancouver, especially a lot of the members of the Vancouver Canucks.
Really? That's cool.
Even Wayne Gretzky was there one time.
Wow. Okay.
So that's usually where the bosses like to hang out. Ian, Gavin, and Phil, the three crazy Brits, or the hub as they were called at
Oh, cool.
mainframe.
Yeah.
And that was where I had my job interview. It was like um, trying to stay awake because I had been up all night the night before, and this was like they took me out to dinner at 10 p.m.
Oh gosh.
Vancouver time, which was 1 a.m.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Van back home in Ontario. So,
So in this interview, like, did you guys talk about like what I'm curious now, just considering where all the conversations took place, was the target audience a young audience or a young adult audience? Because really, I mean, it hit the nail on the head for somebody that would have been, just hitting, close to 20 for my group of friends, like really, and it was an evening show that came on, and we religiously got together to watch it. What was the intended, I guess, audience of this show?
the intended audience initially, because it was on ABC, was kind of toned down. So they made it so it was more like an 8 to 12
Right.
range. When ABC got bought out by Disney, they they gave Reboot the boot, and YTV essentially became our figurehead, our main client.
Right.
So the bosses were able to go with a much more darker episode, which was more generated at teens. They wanted to go for the 13 to 18-year-old. But one of the things about Reboot was that it appealed to all ages. And we hid a lot of Easter eggs within the series. You
Yeah.
have to watch the show more than once to try and find all the stuff that we put in backgrounds on signs.
Well, I like how you you note in your biography here that the episode "To Mend and Defend," you put everyone's names on gravestones with humorous epitaphs on them.
Yes, mine was bought the farm because I came from the cattle farm in Ontario. My boss, Gavin Blair, was swearless. Voice actor Mel Blanc recently passed away, and his epitaph on his gravestone is speechless.
Uh,
Gavin's original nickname was Gavmungus, but it got changed to Mr. Sweary after he did an interview for a toy magazine, and they quoted all his epitaphs. His epitaph I created was swearless. Bob Buckley, who does the music for many of the mainframe series, he was unplugged. Bob, he had 2 golden records in his office for songs nobody's ever heard of.
really? Gold record of his own, like these, he achieved gold records then.
Yep.
Really? Okay.
And one other thing about him, he is the creator of the A&W Root Bear theme song.
Really?
Is he really?
Oh,
Wow.
yes.
Oh
He
my
was paid
goodness.
$150 for that.
No way.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Oh, I mean, that is iconic. 150 bucks. Hey, we got
And
a
he
root
doesn't
beer.
even consider it his best work.
Oh my goodness.
You had indicated as well that during this time with Reboot, was there a lot of times where the animators got the opportunities to direct episodes, but you didn't feel you were ready for that yet?
Yes. The first time Ian asked me if I'd direct, I think it was more of a joke, but he was mad. He had just fired the first director he had other than him, a guy named Michael that we got from Outer Limits.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
He wasn't a very good director. He gave everybody just little snippets here and there. We really had no idea what was going on. And he wouldn't let us watch an animatic, so we did know what was going on. This was High Code, was his first one. And then after Painted Windows, Ian looked at it and said, "This is a piece of bloody crap," in his British voice, fired him. And then he grabbed 6 of us to spend 2 weeks fixing it. Because essentially Mike did everything in wide shots. You couldn't see the characters.
Right.
So there was a lack of drama. One of the things you got to do with animation is get your face right in there.
And those models were so great to work with because of the 3D and could be so expressive with that type of animation, I suppose, as well.
Yes, one of the things we had to do with those models is break them a lot.
Really?
To avoid intersections, we had to pull things apart a little bit and keep, like Bob's shoulder pads. Sometimes
Yeah.
his arm would pop out of it, so we'd have to animate it coming outwards a little bit further.
You could join it up again.
Yep. And one of the things we didn't have back then was an on and off for the constraints. You put a constraint on an arm such, you were stuck with it. So we
Okay.
were we were copying arms and pairing them to bodies and hiding taking rotational animation, which was where you bent the bones in the arm. And if the character put the arm down on the table, we then hid the arm that was animated using rotations in the bones,
Right.
and used what was called effector animation, or forward kinematics is what they call it now, and or inverse kinematics, sorry, and constrain like the hand to the table so it didn't move, and now the body would move and it would pull the arm around.
Wow. Interesting. So how because this was again this was kind of like a cutting edge as far as a developing technology. How different from sort of the modeling in video games, because it was very comparable. I mean, you've got people that a lot of the target audience, whether it was intended or not, that watched the show were people that were rated, and PlayStation 2 was the thing at the time, and that's sort of what we were getting, was Tomb Raider era. So how different from video game animation would this have been when you're doing like for television programs?
Well, television programs were much more detailed in animation. Gameplay back then was really simplified animation, except for the somatics that were inserted within
Yeah.
to add to the story once
Right.
a certain segment of the game had been played. So there's also one of the things is that in television production, the camera itself is a character. And one of the things we did more than anybody else is that we had moving cameras.
Cool.
Sometimes very subtly, they might truck in slowly, but a lot of the times during the show, the cameras are in motion. So it wasn't just a still camera.
Right.
They were trained, they were animated to like follow, even give the viewer a POV as if they were watching this themselves live.
And I remember this too, as you say
Yeah.
it, because there's a lot of action. I mean, nobody stands still in Reboot, and everybody floats. Everybody's on some kind of like gliding motion. It seems as far as getting around. So and as you say this, I'm visualizing some of these angles as you circle some of the characters during some of this action. So that's very cool to hear.
I was actually pretty good with cameras. Ian would tell somebody, "Go see Scott.
Right?
Find out how he did that camera. You do it the same way."
Right.
I'm curious, Scott, with with each season, because you worked on seasons 1 through 3. How much time did you guys have to develop the episode? Because I looked up, like, season 1 had 13 episodes, 2 only had 10, and then 3 had 14. Regular TV that you would see is usually a week to, from start to finish to shoot an episode. What kind of time restraints were you guys on?
Well, initially, at the beginning of season 1, the entire studio worked on one episode at a time, which is why the show kept going into reruns
Right.
until we got the next episode finished. It was like, go in, breakfast would be waiting for you, muffins, fruit, cereal, chow down, go to work. We worked on a flex time method, so as long as you were there before noon, was all good. I was there usually just before 10. And lunch would be ordered out. It could be McDonald's, White Spot, Panagopoulos pizza. Then supper, we had a caterer come in and it put out the spread, and you had to get there before Albert Ho got there. He was this tall, thin Asian guy that just grabbed a plate and just loaded everything.
One of those mega
went back to his
metabolism guys.
computer.
Yeah.
So we called him the locust.
Cleared it. Nice. With the so I mean there came a point too where the series really took on like a continuity of a story. How much of that did you get involved in, or did you have time to sort of get as an animator? Do you have any kind of like notes, I guess, or ideas that get incorporated into the storytelling? Some very cool storytelling that like that would grip us. That's why we kept coming back. There was the whole Enzo, the future stuff. It was just very cool. So, how did the story kind of come out to you guys? Obviously, you get storyboards or something, or
No, the bosses really just simplified what storyboards there were by just taking images of the character and cutting them onto the animatic.
okay.
One of the silly things I remember from Beast Wars is that we were doing an episode in season 3. Rat Trap is underwater in this ball submarine, and we use clips from Yellow Submarine and this other submarine movie about a Hunt for Red October.
Oh wow. Okay.
So had clips of that in the animatic, but sometimes the bosses did position characters just as colored rectangles in the set.
Okay.
So, but we would be handed a script, and Ian would say, "Read it. We're not doing it." He
Okay.
would have changed everything.
Read
He
it.
had
We're
a
not
plaque
doing
on
it.
his desk that said, "I have not yet begun to follow the script." And if you had a better idea, he would say, "I love it. I bloody well love it. Do it."
Nice. So is that
So a lot of things were actually done on the fly and changed during production, which I should get back to. Like the early days was like a 4-week schedule. We
Right.
would work these 4 weeks through the weekends, final week till about 5:30 in the morning, a few
Wow.
overnighters. There were cots and mattresses to lay on at the studio, hidden under our desks. And then once the show was done, Friday night, everybody down to bar none to drink till you puke. except for one of the production assistants. This big ass videotape would be put into a suitcase. It would be handcuffed to his wrist.
Nice.
He'd be thrown into a taxi to the airport, and the airport would take him to a plane, which would take him to New York City, and he'd take a taxi to ABC, and
Amazing.
where he would get uncuffed. And
That's awesome. I mean, terrifying for him, I'm sure, but like that, what a great like sort of what we don't see.
It's hearing all of
Yeah.
this and going, I appreciate every episode all that much more now.
And I gotta ask, I guess too, just as somebody who like occasionally has to render some video, how much time back then would you spend simply waiting for processing to see something? Because I know that computers weren't as quick back then.
oh yes, we used to do what was called the render walk.
Okay.
Now, there was when we looked at the computer screen and were animating the characters, they did not have handles back then. We had to zoom in through the wireframe and find the individual bones
Okay.
to animate for the hands, body, assorted parts.
Right.
Handles wouldn't be created until way later. But because we're still back in the not exactly the Stone Age of animation. Stone Age was back when the bosses did Money for Nothing by Dire Straits,
Yeah.
where they were punching in points in an AutoCAD
Wow.
Wow.
for every frame. So they're
Wow.
they're on calculators calculating where the 8 points of a cube is for each frame to rotate this cube.
Oh my goodness.
That's crazy.
6 months,
Wow.
Wow.
18
Holy-
hours a day.
Oh my gosh. So better than that at least, but
Yeah.
but still not
Optimized when it was created, revolutionized the animation industry because now there were bones within the shapes.
right.
Right.
You can now rotate them.
Right.
That's incredible.
So as far as like the design and the characters, were there any things like as an animator that you're like, because like Bob's hair, for example, like there were things that they the directors or producers wanted to see movement on that were just like, we can't do that.
The quote, one of the guys from ILM that took me out for dinner as a consolation of not getting hired by ILM, Steve Spaz Williams. He told me, cheat.
Okay.
And that is pretty much what you got to do in animation. His one quote to me was that in reality does not look real, so you have to cheat it. And he used an example when he did the movie Jumanji, a cheetah running. The cheetah's head in real life is actually quite stationary, and he said he had to give it some bobbing so it actually looked like it was moving properly.
Wow.
So quite often in animation, we have to exaggerate stuff.
Right.
Huh.
So there were things that, yeah, it was like, oh, how are we going to do this? Sometimes we had to slap together like a stunt prop, which could actually do it.
Right. And so how rewarding, I guess, was it like when you get through that, you've applied that cheat and then it works? Like, was that something that were these the kind of challenges so that you enjoyed, or were they kind of like, okay, let's just get this done so we can move on to the next thing?
I think for some people it was like,
Yeah.
challenges, especially for the tech department there. Chris and Kelly, they were always pretty much trying to work out the tech problems that were involved in the show. I'm referring to Chris Wellman and Kelly Daniels. Chris created the lip sync animation called Grin that we used. It was our own proprietary software, and that revolutionized the animation that we could do. Up to, well, even our competition, they really just relied on jaw rotations to get their characters to talk.
Reboot had some great like mouth animation. It was very cool. And like even Beast Wars. So when you moved on to Beast Wars,
I just want to ask
yeah.
though, when you say, Scott, like, you know, a month to do a show, when and where do the voice actors actually come in? Because we've now begun talking to voice actors. Are they recording as you guys are working on it, or do they wait until you have
No,
the finished?
they would have recorded prior to it, but
Okay.
you would also have to go back in and do re-records because quite often the script would get changed.
Right, yeah. You don't stick to it, right?
So you're hearing them as you guys are creating this. You're hearing their
Yes.
voices. Oh wow. Okay.
Hey, this is Jamie,
And this is Ryan.
and we're the Recap Sequence.
Be sure to tune in to us every Wednesday night on CHSR 97.9 FM or online at chsrfm.ca at 7 p.m. Atlantic, 6 p.m. Eastern.
And if you don't catch us live, you can catch our podcast on Spotify, on Amazon, anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And we also have a YouTube channel you may have been watching. And if not, you should be. Catch us on YouTube at Recap Sequence.
And subscribe.
Subscribe. Yeah, please. Very cool. So you know, later on, so when you went to do work with Halifax Film, different type of technology. Like I'm thinking of Bow on the Go, and I've seen every episode of Bow on the Go probably 3 or 4 times because it was my kid would wake up at 5 a.m. and I would get up, I'd watch CBC Kids, and then I'd watch it again because it would come on, it would come on twice in the day. What was the difference like in working with things like that and with like Animal Mechanicals, again, one of my favorite shows.
Well, when I came to Halifax Film, I'd actually turned down lead animator. And because I thought, well, I'm new to Maya. I've only got like maybe 4 or 5 months experience with it. 1 month of intensive working class, and which I ended up pretty much having to teach myself.
Oh,
I had a couple guys who were from Mainframe and a couple student graduates of Van Arts when I took the 1 month intensive course. And they were pretty much following the same book that I was reading and practicing with at home. And I would be there fixing their mistakes. So quite often they ended up handing the class to me.
okay.
So actually, it was like just after that I graduated from that, and I'm playing around with Maya. I'm recreating my mechanical monsters from post-historic at home on my computer, and I see a job in Halifax for this new studio. I apply to it, and month later, Andrew Annickson is on the phone. He offers me lead animator, and I thought, well, I'm kind of new to Maya. I don't feel really comfortable. Like the ad said, 2 years experience minimum. When I got out to Halifax, only 5 of the 22 animators that they had hired had ever touched Maya.
Okay.
Wow.
Most of them were like paper and pencil
Right.
animators right out of college.
Holy cow.
If they knew anything about computer animation, it was Flash.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
So, the first month, teach the others how to. Then, Bow on the Go, there was no handles. There were 2 types of skeleton. There were essentially 2 sets of skeletons built together within Bow. the plan was for her to be mostly motion captured.
Okay.
The studio had had built the largest motion capture studio on the East Coast of North America, down at what was then the Electropolis building, which is now Nova Scotia Power.
Okay. Yeah.
And they had a professional dancer act out Bo's movements.
Right.
Anyway, CBC said, her movements are too adulty. Get rid of the motion capture. So we went back to keyframing.
Okay.
So we actually ended up animating the first 10 episodes of Bo on the Go 3 times until
Wow.
it passed
Until it
CBC
got through.
requirement.
Okay, I didn't realize that had such a journey to get to the screen. Wow.
Was that your first experience with motion capture as well?
No, I had done motion capture back on Action Man.
Okay.
Okay.
We had used motion capture. Well, the studio had done motion capture with Barbie in the Nutcracker back at Mainframe, and that was our first foray into motion capture.
I've also seen that, by the way.
I had, although I don't list it in my credits, I spent 4 hours on Barbie as Rapunzel, which was the second one.
Cool.
I had set up a shot where Barbie was at an easel, the characters are in her room, and this was my first day on the episode, on the movie, and somebody came in and said, "Oh, you're not supposed to be on this production." I said, "What?"
Oh. Hope you got paid for the 4 hours at least.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Good.
So I was pulled back on to I believe it was Action Man.
Okay. Do you have a pet favorite? I mean, you've been involved in so many things: Bob the Builder, Superwise, Spider-Man, Beast
Inspector
Wars,
Gadget.
Inspector Gadget, Doozers, which I that one that wasn't even on my rate. I love Fraggle Rock, but I didn't. I don't think I recall Doozers when it came out. But like, yeah, so you have got such an impressive list of projects that you've worked on. Are there any that stand out as the one that you enjoyed working on the most?
Reboot, because we had the most creativity with it.
Yeah.
Beast Wars, probably because of all the explosions.
Sure.
I did put myself in an episode of Reboot. I'm one of the binomes running from a tidal wave of paint,
Cool.
painted windows. And I put myself in a couple episodes of Spider-Man, the animated series.
I started rewatching one of them because I'm trying to pick you out right now. So I've been using, I'm about halfway through it. So I'll probably find it after we've done the episode.
Okay, it's in, the first one is in When Sparks Fly. I am actually standing behind Peter Parker, Mary Jane, and Harry as Dr. Williams is being wheeled into the ambulance.
Cool.
I am wearing my signature Angus hat at the time. Originally said Ontario Angus, but I thought that might be a copyright. So I just put Angus because my family's Angus cattle farmers. And was wearing an orange mainframe jacket.
Nice.
I have quite a collection of mainframe jackets. I have one right here. This was my first one after I put in my 3 months.
Wow. I love your shirt. I love the badge. I like all like just again like when we awesome. Like we were like so excited about this because just the visuals just are burned into my brain, just the logos, and as you talk about the episodes, it brings back just mentioning the binomes and just like there are so many things that my almost fully formed, mature brain kind of sucked in and has retained. And again, it came back in syndication some time ago, and it was just such a joy to rewatch it. So getting to talk to you, this is great.
I'm going to ask.
Pretty
Hopefully,
fast.
this comes up here. Oh, where are we? There we are.
Up you go.
Is that it right there, right behind Peter Parker?
Yep.
That's him right there. There it is.
Through the magic of editing, we'll swipe this in here. It's so much clearer.
About halfway through the episode, exactly.
Nice.
I'm curious as well, Scott, because going through your list of what you've worked on and stuff, was Reboot pretty much the one where you guys had more creative control? Because it sounds like you had to deal with a lot of executives as you were going through different projects. I outright laughed. I got to share this is when you talked about working on Action Man, and you had the executives, the network executives that would show up and said that everything looked like a penis throughout. I thought Action Man had to be able to fly because he was a superhero, and then a third guy that would tell everyone what he liked to have on his bagels every day.
Oh, yes. My director, when those guys showed up, was Steve Sack. Yeah. He was a pretty mellow guy, but he had this vein appear like pulsing in his forehead when the guy with the bagels was chatting. The first guy, the guy who described everything as a penis, like the mesa that Action Man lands on in the episode Gray Areas is what we were working on. So it looked like a penis. The ketchup bottle on the table of the diner he goes to looks like a penis. The jukebox in the background looks like a penis. Penis. Whole list of things that looked like penises. So my friend Conrad, he made this silly little Action Man condom commercial for the man on the go.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It wasn't
There was a lot of things I wish people could see that we did behind the scenes. Like
sure.
Animated the characters, silly stuff.
Yeah.
Dom DeLuise, who did the voice of Zerv's father in a couple episodes of Heavy Gear. Filthiest language you ever heard, but somebody animated the sequences to his track, which we did not use, but
right.
a variation of the track that we actually did.
But it exists.
It exists.
That is hilarious.
What I seem to remember in the 90s too with animation, there was a bit of a, there were some scandals, like, like some Little Mermaid and things where things like that would appear in the animation or were perceived to have. Is it something that was regularly hidden deliberately? Like were things like that put in there, like phallic symbols and other things, and just to sneak them by?
Silly little markers like that, yes, have been put in shows, but they were never intended. Like there's one shot, one children's series about a bee, female bee, and apparently somebody put a penis inside this log, which was never supposed to be shown, but they ended up reusing the set again.
Oh no!
Oh no!
It wasn't in any series I worked on, but it caused quite a controversy when it happened. But
right.
Yes, we used to put topless women on vid screens and such.
Right.
And actually, one of my friends did get in trouble for that in Beast Machines. He had built the set for Megatron's lair in Beast Machines, and he had all these video screens, and it had a girl from Cecil's on screens.
Back. I love that full circle to Cecil's.
Yeah.
Anyways, the designs, some of the stills from the designs ended up on some executive's desk, and he bitched about it.
Right. Yeah. Well, there are people that go looking for that, I suppose. But I think I'm sure in even in traditional animation prior to that, there's plenty of hidden gold in there.
Yes, Tiny Toons when I was in college.
I love Tiny Toons. Yeah.
Babs Bunny in an episode about gremlins. Buster grabs her by her ears after she does a Mae West impersonation,
Yeah.
and she is shown fully female nude when he pulls her out of the dress.
Oh wow.
But it's just like it's so quick, like frame wise, you'd have to be deliberately looking, knowing where to look, kind of thing. But that's the kind of thing that gets hidden in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they redid that, but
Yeah.
I did see it when it first ran.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Is talking about this. Your website. You post a lot of life drawing pictures that you have done. When I was part of this college and the 3D animation program was offered, they included life drawing in there because they said it was an important part to not just be able to sit at the computer and work, but to be able to actually be able to draw something. Do you believe that as well? That like life
Yes, I
drawing,
do.
like it has a huge part to it, right? It's not just sitting at the computer.
No. In fact, one of the things that always surprised me is actually how few computer animators can actually draw.
Really?
Yep.
That's surprising, actually. Yeah.
There are, I'd have to say, at least 60% of the computer animators that I have worked with cannot draw anything other than a stick figure.
Really? Really? So is it mostly the task then is it's the manipulation of the models then? Like for that's their skill, it's not the design part?
Yes.
But it's surprising to hear that because I think you make that assumption when you work in that field that you started off sketching and then you moved on. But that's sometimes it's I guess it's more of a technical trade to some.
Yeah, I'm actually quite good at life drawing. My life drawing teacher told me I was wasting my talents becoming an animator.
Really?
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 And I told him that I'd make it a hobby.
Because the students who would apply to these programs, they had to submit their drawings. They had to show that they were able to draw, not only just to get into the 2D program, but to the 3D program at the same time.
Yes. And I'm finding that's no longer the case anymore. It seems like it's more like what you can do with a computer on your own gets you within the program, and of course the green.
Oh yeah, of
Right,
course.
of course.
So when you're at these conventions like you were at East Coast Comic Expo and stuff, do you have people who come up to you and say, "Hey, how do I get into this?" What do you tell them? Like, what do you tell them they need to do?
One thing I recommend is photography.
Okay.
Okay.
That teaches you a lot about composition. Now, guy I worked with at Mainframe, I'm not going to mention his name, but he was terrible at composition, even though he got promoted to supervising animator. We used to fight all the time about composition, about animation. I used to call him Dr. Two Frames because he'd put a key on the first frame and key on the last and let the character drift through the entire sequence. We used to fight about anything, about which way a character leaned when he was riding a motorcycle. He told me that the centrifugal force would be pulling him out away from the handlebars of the bike, and I'm saying, no, you lean into a turn. You lean outwards, you're going to end up on your ass.
So physics plays a huge part in
Oh yes,
in
you gotta
animation as well.
understand
Yeah.
physics.
Yeah. What you mentioned like I mean you have drawing abilities at cons. Do you get asked to do sketches at all?
Yes, I have done people as binomes.
I like it.
Most people usually ask me to draw them Megabyte or Bob.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Were you so there was another Guardian introduced. Now I'm trying to remember that looked an awful lot like Bob. I remember there's a point where Bob disappeared and Enzo was kind of, the eye patch and the leather jacket and um like were there were design changes to the characters as they went and so do you get to contribute at all to like are you part of as an animator were you part of that design change as well?
Um, Usually the designs were done by designers such as Brendan McCarthy. Um, I shared an office with him between first and second season of Reboot. And I used to pretend that I was his secretary because he'd be out of the office and people were always calling
Looking for
him.
him.
And I'd be saying like, "Hello, can I help you?" Because it would be taking me away from my work, which
Sure.
at the time was doing updating improved walk cycles of the characters. Ian told me since I'm so good at doing walk cycles to create some, because first season the characters walked a lot like Howdy Doody.
Right, yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
So he wanted them to walk or run more realistically. So he had me doing that, and I was sharing an office with Brendan McCarthy, and sometimes I got to do a little input into some of the designs, like hi there on the airplane used in Bad Bob. I just watched Doctor Strangelove.
Ah, cool. And there's also lots of moving pieces on the essentially the set of like mainframe is not your typical static environment. So was there a lot like all the bells and whistles of things moving around? How were those kind of parsed out? Like, would you be required? Were people assigned characters versus background images, or were you kind of required to do an entire scene?
We were required to do an entire
Oh,
sequence.
okay,
So it could be like 3 to 12 scenes put together. Um, my bosses loved the names that I would come up with for these sequences. Um, they would cut a piece of dialogue track for me, and case in point of hexadecimal riding in Bob's car, I called it "Driving Mrs. Crazy." My bosses just cracked right up.
Oh, that's good. That's
So
good.
they would send me this piece of track labeled "Driving Mrs. Crazy,"
right.
and I would go in and cut into various scenes. There would be a bleep for each scene within it, and I would be pulling up Grin and animating the character. Well, Bob Hex really didn't speak.
Right.
She just had mask changes.
Yeah,
Wipe
yeah.
the hand wipe to change her mask. So we would do everything within that sequence, background characters,
Okay.
sets, anything that had to be rebuilt. We had to rebuild things on the fly. I had to make it so that the windshield of Bob's car could be ripped off.
Right. Oh my goodness. I'm starting to, oh my goodness, this is like
You've real good appreciation now, eh, when
I'm
you how
yeah,
much
yeah,
detail and stuff go into it.
yeah.
I mean, you had even said in one of the, I think Spider-Man the animated series was delayed because you guys had to go back in and remove the Twin Towers because this had come out
Yes.
post 9/11.
Yes, and one thing I learned recently by watching the Reboot Rewind documentary on YouTube is that they had to cut a couple of towers that collapsed
Oh
Okay.
uh,
wow,
in season 4 because it looked too much like the Twin Towers.
Right. Wow.
that's crazy. Scott, I've got to ask here. Tell us about Scott Scribbles.
Scott Scribbles is a web comic I do based on myself, my wife, and my dog mostly. Um, about my time in animation. I had to not post a lot of comics about my time at DHX because it probably would have gotten me fired.
So what are you working on right now? Are you allowed to tell us?
I'm afraid not.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not. Well, actually, I can. I'm actually a security guard for Commissionaires, Nova Scotia.
Oh,
Oh,
great.
wow,
Right
okay.
on, right on.
See, the writer strike laid off caused me to get laid off, as well as pretty much 90% of my friends in animation,
Okay.
Okay.
and amazing number of people who are in retail. And I did get offered a job by an animation studio, which I will not name. But $16, I worked it out that it would be like $16 an hour, and I politely refused, and I wanted to tell them to
Sure.
go to hell,
Sure. Sure.
because I make 21 just sitting on my butt in my car guarding a security gate out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, look, our regular jobs, we don't get paid to do this at all. Our regular jobs are civil servants, so we absolutely appreciate the work that the commissioners
Yes.
do, because they're posted at every property that we work at.
Do you
So,
get to go to a lot of cons then?
Um, I try to. Depends on my work schedule. And I got to two last year, or I should say this year. I plan on getting to a few more next year.
Nice.
Gotta try and sell my book here.
Oh, yeah.
Scott
Wife and
Scribbles.
Dog and Animation.
Where can people find that?
Now they can find it either by my website, scottbaltjes.com, or Frisian Press, or they can also find it on Amazon, Apple, and Google Play.
Okay. Right on. So, are you? Is it in the plan for you for next year to hit any cons in our neck of the woods, or are you
I'll be back at ECC.
perfect?
Outstanding.
We will be
I
back
am
at the
going.
table.
I've been asked to do a panel on the goings on behind Reboot.
Fantastic.
Wow.
All the
nice.
stuff that happened behind the scenes, and all the stuff that we snuck in.
Very cool.
One of my friends, Dave Williscroft, he used to. His nickname was Toiletron. He collected toy. He had a collection of miniature toilets all over his desk. Some were mugs, some were candy holders. Anyway, he would stick toilets in all his shots.
My God.
So somewhere in the background of Reboot, Beast Wars, Shadow Raiders, Beast Machines, you will see toilets.
I smell a drinking game coming on. I
Yeah.
think in every that's what
And you'll have Scott Scribbles then at ECCE?
Yes, I will.
amazing,
I want to get
amazing.
myself a copy.
Well,
I look forward to
listen,
this.
Scott, this has been an amazing chat. I'm a huge fan of your work. And the more we got to talk, the bigger a fan I became. So I really appreciate this opportunity to get a chance to talk to you.
Yeah, this has been fun.
We will be back at ECCE in June, and we will track you down. Love to have a face-to-face chat with you, and really great stuff. So, folks, Scott Scribbles, we'll have the information on the ticker where you can find it.
Yep.
Pick it up if you can. And Scott Baltjes, thank you so much for
This has been awesome, Scott.
for coming on our show.
Oh, you're very welcome.
You enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope the sun comes out and it gets warmer. I think tomorrow's gonna be better.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, you can follow my webcomic on scottbaltjes.com or Scott Scribbles on Instagram and Facebook.
Amazing.
Will do,
I am
for sure.
working on my second book, which is COVID-19 and Insecurity.
Okay, right on, right on.
So we'll have to talk to you about that then when we see you in Moncton.
Yeah. So we don't talk to you in Moncton. We will definitely be in touch to have you back on the show. But we will definitely we'll wait longer at your table. If you're not there, we'll stake it out.
Okay then.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you
Scott.
again. Have
Appreciate
a
it,
great
man.
enjoy the rest of your weekend and all the best.
Thank you. Take care now.
Take
See
care.
you.